Good day, everyone, and welcome to the class on citing earlier works. This is part of the MQB7001 Research Method course. The idea of citing earlier works is that if I have sinned further, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. This is a quote by Sir Isaac Newton. So this is the citing earlier works MQB7001 Research Method course. And I'm going to be your lecturer today. I'm Professor Victor Ho from the Department of Social and Preventive Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, University of Malaya. So why should we cite earlier works? The reason for citing earlier works is that attributions serve as a fact-checking tools, which means that this will know that whether what you have written on your text is actually correct or not. And citation makes you a better researcher because it shows you that you have actually done your literature review and find out what is already published, what is already known. That's why it shows that you have basically read well. Good citation practice makes you a better writer. A good bibliography shows that your scientific knowledge, that means again, that means you have read well in your field, and careful citation practice will build your credibility as a scientist and scholar. Also, citation enables better verification of your work to see whether what you have done have been previously published or have been said earlier. So having a good citation or making a good bibliography is important as a researcher, but not only as a researcher, but also in your career moving forward. So how to cite? How to cite to avoid plagiarizing other people's work? So the important thing is, what do you mean by plagiarism? So before actually you want to cite some people's work, other people's work, you cannot just reproduce what is written on the text. You need to read and understand before you cite. You need to read and understand what the author want to tell before you actually cite what the author want to say. The issue is understand what is the message the author wants to share. And you can basically write the message that want to share, but not the information as it is in the text. And then you internalize the idea and put it in your own words. So first you have to read and understand before you cite, understand what is the message the author wants to share, and then internalize the idea and put it in your own words. What you need is total internalization. Internalizing what the author wants to tell. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism basically means that to copy, repeat, fake, borrow, or steal someone else's work. It derives from the Latin word to kidnap. So the idea is that, of course, we need to use somebody else's work. We need to read earlier work, as we mentioned earlier. We need to know what has been published. We need to know what evidence is available. But how can we do it without showing that it is plagiarism? So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism comes in three forms. First one is collusion. This is where you are working with one or more other people when you should be working alone. The next is copying, when you use someone else's work without giving due reference or due recognition to it. And paraphrasing, this is reading someone else's work and then writing it out in your own words. And also without citing the person. So the meaning of plagiarism is collusion, copying, and paraphrasing. So you need to avoid all this when you're writing in your thesis, your dissertation, and your research report, or any report or assignment that you are going to submit during this course. So where should I get the information from? The idea is you read a full paper, and normally original report will come in this form. There's an abstract, an introduction, a method, a result section, and a discussion section. So where should I get the information so that I can cite the author in a proper manner? The one important thing is never cite from only reading the abstract alone. Always check the facts in the full text, because sometimes the abstract might be wrong, or sometimes the abstract only present a biased information, biased representation of the information of the full text. So should never cite an abstract alone. The idea of citing an abstract alone should not be what you are going to practice. Also, it's important for you to understand that if you are citing non-English journal, which only comes as an abstract in English, that means that you have not basically read the text to understand what the author actually have done and what the author wants to tell. So again, never cite from only reading the abstract alone. The introduction. So the introduction is only good for inspiration. However, it's not the author's work. So if you want to cite what is in the introduction, it's better for you to read the original cited works that the author actually have used, instead of citing what the author have written. Because those are the words of the author of this paper, and not the ideas of the original author. So the ideas of the author of this paper might have been authored already. So the idea is that you should not cite the introduction. You do not use the information in the introduction as part of your what we call your report writing, but you can use it as an inspiration of how you want to frame your introduction, how you want to frame your literature review, but not to use the information as for citation purposes. All right, so it's just an inspiration of how you want to write. That's all. Method section is, you use method section if you have basically using the same or similar method in your report, in your thesis, or in your dissertation. So cite information in the method section if you are using the same or similar methods in your paper. If you are not using a similar method, the information on the methods is just for you to check the validity of the result of the report or of the paper that you are reading currently. So you need to read the method section to see whether the result is valid or not, whether you can use the result, or you can use the result as a reference in your own report or not. Result is basically citing the facts. All right, citing what the author actually found. So this is about citing what is the finding of the research. Discussion is about citing the opinion of the author, which means that the author actually have found out what in the result section, completed his research and presented the result in the result section, and from the result he gives you an opinion of what he thinks. And that is where you need to cite. That is where is the author's idea. So the author's idea based on the result of the report. So you should not cite the author's idea based on the introduction, but you can cite the author's idea based on the result of the report. So that can be cited basically, but that can be cited as an opinion of the author, but not of facts. You should only cite information on the discussion if you value the thoughts of the author, or the author is considered an authoritative figure in the field. So the idea is that when you are reading a paper, you must read every section of the paper before you actually use the paper or use as a reference in your own report. So we have what we call a hierarchy of evidence, which means that what paper are more important, what paper are better compared to other paper. Of course, the most important paper is a systematic review with a meta-analysis. You should always try to find a systematic review with meta-analysis for you to cite instead of looking for original paper. When you have a systematic review with meta-analysis, you don't have to include the original paper in your report. You can just use the systematic review. However, you can use one or two of the paper original report as what we call an inspiration in your introduction to inspire you to basically conduct the research. But for your literature review, it's better for you to use the systematic review along with the meta-analysis, that means the summary of the result of all the papers that they have. Of course, the next is a systematic review without a meta-analysis. Then you have a narrative review. The problem with a narrative review is most of the time it's a biased review. What do you mean by a biased review? In the sense that the author actually have an idea of what they want to write. Right? The author have an idea of what they want to write. They just conduct a review to support the idea. So it's biased towards the author's preconcept idea. By a systematic review, even the author have a preconcept idea, but because they have conducted a systematic review, which means that all the literature has been assessed and has been found, and then only they come up with the conclusion or the result that is not biased, that is less prone to bias. Original research is good. Then you have a case report or case study, and of course the last is expert opinion. So if you want to use information in your report, in your thesis, in your dissertation, start by looking to see whether there is a systematic review or not, and whether the systematic review have meta-analysis or not. Then if you don't have, then you go look for a systematic review, narrative review, original research, case report, case study, and the last only is expert opinion. Example. This is an example of the work, one of my research that I have conducted, which is the determinants of multi-site musculoskeletal disorder among school teachers in Malaysia. This is the research that I've conducted for my Masters of Occupational Safety and Health from the University of Turin. And this result is based on the cluster study. So the data is I derived from the cluster study, which is part of Prof. Moy's multi-million ringgit study. Just look at this, have an idea of how I structured my introduction. I have an extra chapter called the background and my literature review. So the introduction basically introduces the subject. You talk about burden of musculoskeletal disorder, cause of musculoskeletal disorder, risk factor musculoskeletal disorder. So it's a summary of what I have written in my literature review. This is what is in the introduction. Then I talk about teachers, and I talk about the objective of the whole report or whole dissertation. Then chapter 2, I present a background. because this report is presented in Italy, in a university in Italy. So I'd like to present them with a background of where my study is conducted. So I present a background of Malaysia, school system in Malaysia, the cluster study. So this is basically looking at the background of the Malaysian context only. Then in the literature review, I divide the literature to review according to topics, and each topic, if you look at it, each topic you are supposed to conduct a systematic review for each topic. But because we cannot conduct a systematic review, basically what we look for is published systematic review or analysis to look at the burden of musculoskeletal disorder among workers, burden of musculoskeletal disorder among workers in Malaysia, summary of burden of musculoskeletal disorder, risk factor for musculoskeletal disorder, extrinsic risk factor, physical risk factor, organization and psychosocial risk factor, individual risk factor, summary of risk factor for musculoskeletal disorder, multi-site musculoskeletal disorder, multi-site pain in general population, multi-site pain in working population, summary findings of multi-site musculoskeletal disorder, musculoskeletal among teacher, prevalence of musculoskeletal disorder among teacher, risk factor musculoskeletal among teacher, individual risk factor musculoskeletal, workplace physical and psychosocial risk factor musculoskeletal disorder among teacher in Malaysia, and then it provides a summary. So for each section, after you have basically described, you provide a summary. What is a summary actually? A summary means that what is your thoughts, what you think from the information you have gathered from all the paper you have reviewed, from all the citation, all the references that you have included. So a summary means that you summarize your thoughts and inform the audience or the examiner of what is your thought. That at the end of the examiner want to know what you think and not what has already been known. All right, what you think is important. This is to give you an example of just 2 paragraphs on my introduction. This is the first 2 paragraphs of the introduction to the chapter 1. Right? So this is the first and second paragraph. And in the first paragraph, you see there is basically a very short paragraph. All right? Let's look at it and see which part of it required citation, which part of it required references, which part of it I can say that I can write without referring to another text. It means that I am the authoritative figure that I can say that this is what I say and this is what I know, and that's why I write it. Which part? Although I can say that I know it, I got information about it, I have read a lot about it, but it is always better to have a reference or a citation that support the information that you're presenting. For example, the first sentence, work-related musculoskeletal disorder are the most common occupational disorder around the world and has been recognized a problem since 17th century by Bernardo Ramazzini, the father of occupational medicine. So to do this, basically I look at it and I have 2 references to support this sentence alone. Then the second sentence, I have another reference to support the second sentence is where he observed that a variety of conditions were caused by prolonged, violent, and regular motion and prolonged posture. Then the third sentence, I also have reference to support the third sentence. He also observed that upper limb problem among professional writers were the risk was prolonged static posture, highly repetitive work, and attention to details. So I have a third reference to support the third sentence. Then in the second paragraph, I have another 2 references to support the first sentence of my second paragraph. Musculoskeletal disorder include a wide range of inflammation and degenerative conditions affecting the muscle, tendon, ligament, joints, peripheral nerve, and supporting blood vessels. So you have 2 privileged previously published work to support my first sentence in my second paragraph. And the last sentence in my second paragraph, I also provide 4 references to support the last sentence in my second paragraph. The idea is that if you provide this information and you provide the citation, and to the information that you presented in your write-up, it shows you that you are widely correct, you understand your subject, you understand where you're coming from, you recognize the people in the field, you know them, and then basically that's what you are trying to show. So in just these 2 paragraphs, every sentence I have a reference, and in just these 2 paragraphs I have actually 8 references to support the information I have presented in this first two paragraphs of my introduction to my dissertation for my master's thesis. The master's thesis is the same like what you are doing now, Masters of Public Health, because it is a coursework with a research report. So it is the same that what you are doing. So it's a 1-year program, coursework, and a research report. So the context of the work is the same, the amount of work is the same, but the idea is that you must be able to, if possible, to write in this manner so that people will understand, people will know that you have read well, you know how to cite, you have cite correctly. So, summarize, this is how it looks at the end. These are the references that I have used for my paper, for my introduction. And making mistake is better than faking perfection. So you can make mistake, as because you are a student now. All right, just do it and make sure that you make sure you make the mistake and then learn from your mistake. Perfect does not mean perfect action in perfect world, but appropriate action in an imperfect world. So just make sure that you try and do your best and include the references that you want. So the important message that I want you to take is citation is important, correct citation is important, avoid plagiarism. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Hope to see you again next time.